The sun had barely risen over the kingdom of Nkora when Princess Amara, the only child of King Oba Kofi, wandered to the northern gates of the palace. Her silk skirts whispered against the stone as she moved, the faint clinking of golden jewelry trailing behind her. Beyond the gates, where the royal gardens met the dense forest, she saw him, Ade, the palace guard. His stance was rigid, spear in hand, yet there was something fluid in his movements, a quiet strength that spoke of courage forged in hardship. Amara had always known the rules. Princesses were to marry princes, not guards. But something in the calm intensity of Ade's eyes drew her closer. That morning, as sunlight spilled over the courtyard, their eyes met. A spark, neither understood, passed silently between them. From that moment, Amara's heart shifted. She began finding reasons to pass by the northern gate, to linger near the young guard. She asked questions about the kingdom that only a soldier of the palace could answer. Ade spoke humbly, recounting stories of the forests beyond the kingdom, of rivers that whispered to those who listened, and of ancestral spirits that roamed the villages at night, guarding or punishing depending on the hearts of men. Rumors began to stir within the palace walls. Servants whispered about the princess and her attention to the guard, and courtiers scowled at what they saw as a breach of etiquette. When King Oba Kofi learned of these whispers, his rage was quiet but deadly. "A guard is not your equal, Amara," he said, his voice cutting through the palace hall like a sharp blade. "He serves the kingdom. He does not belong near you." Amara, with defiance and a trembling heart, replied, "Father, it is not about rank. It is about honor, loyalty, and courage. Look closely, see the truth of his heart." The king's eyes narrowed, but he could not bring himself to punish the guard yet. Still, he decreed that Ade must not follow her to public ceremonies. Yet Amara's spirit would not be bound. That night, under the silver gaze of the moon, she slipped through the palace gardens, taking Ade's hand. Together they wandered beyond the walls, through forests where fireflies danced like sparks of ancestral magic, and along the riverbanks where elders had whispered of spirits watching over the kingdom. Their whispers mingled with the river's song, promises forming between them in the quiet. By the time the sun rose, the palace gates knew nothing of their secret journey. But the forest did. The trees seemed to lean closer, leaves rustling in approval or warning, and the river hummed with a knowledge older than the kingdom itself. From that night, Amara and Ade's bond deepened, rooted in courage, devotion, and a love that neither law nor palace intrigue could erase. The kingdom, however, was restless. Shadows of envy and suspicion crept through the halls, carrying whispers of rebellion and curse. And the forest, the river, and the ancestors watched, their patience long, their judgment inevitable. Life in the palace grew tense. Amara's attention to Ade became impossible to hide. Courtiers muttered in hushed voices, and jealous guards began watching him with suspicion. King Oba Kofi grew impatient, his pride bruised by his daughter's defiance. One evening, a messenger arrived from a neighboring village. Strange occurrences had been reported: crops failing, animals disappearing, and villagers claiming to see shadowy figures moving through the forest. The king called his council and demanded protection for the kingdom. Ade was tasked with investigating these mysteries, a dangerous mission. Amara insisted on accompanying him. "I will not sit idle while you face danger alone," she said, her eyes aflame with determination. The king's fury shook the walls. "Princess, this is no place for you. Return to your chambers at once." But she did not. She threatened to disobey her father, and finally, he relented, though his eyes burned with unease. The forest awaited, dark and alive, its secrets hidden in every rustle of leaf and every shadow along the river. As they journeyed deeper, the air grew thick with an otherworldly presence. Strange symbols were carved into trees, and the river's hum became a low chant, as if the ancestors themselves were speaking. That night, by a campfire, Ade recounted stories of the forest spirits, protectors and punisher spirits who watched mortals closely. The wind shifted, carrying a faint whisper. "They are here," Ade said softly, his eyes scanning the darkness. Amara felt a shiver, but she held his hand, refusing to let fear break their bond. By dawn, they returned with tales that terrified the palace guards. Shadows moved unnaturally in the forest, whispering names. Crops in the king's lands were wilting despite rain. Some spoke of a curse that could only be broken by someone pure of heart. A warning, perhaps, that the royal family's actions could unleash forces beyond their understanding. King Oba Kofi's anger softened slightly, but not entirely. Ade's bravery and the princess's loyalty to him forced the king to acknowledge something he had long resisted: Ade's heart was noble. Yet, dangers both human and supernatural lingered, waiting for missteps, ready to punish hubris with deadly precision. The kingdom of Nkora was preparing for the annual Festival of Spirits, a time when villagers and royals alike honored the ancestors and sought their protection. The air was thick with the scent of burning incense, roasted yams, and fresh kola nuts. Drums echoed across the palace courtyard, calling the villagers from the distant hills to the center of the kingdom. Lanterns made of dried palm leaves glowed like tiny suns as night approached, and masks depicting ancestral faces were worn by dancers who moved with a hypnotic rhythm. Princess Amara insisted Ade accompany her to the festival, despite objections from her father. She walked with him beside her, her hand never leaving his, drawing whispers from the crowd. Villagers stared, some in awe, others in disbelief. The king's advisors murmured anxiously. Some wondered if his pride would finally give way to rage. The festival began with the offering of food and libations to the spirits. Elders chanted in deep, resonant tones, invoking protection and favor. Ade and Amara stood side by side, their fingers entwined, listening to the whispers of the ancestors in the wind. Suddenly the drums changed rhythm, faster, irregular. The dancers froze. Shadows shifted unnaturally, and a cold gust swept through the courtyard. A hush fell over the crowd. An elderly seer, cloaked in white with beads dangling from her arms, approached the princess. Her eyes, clouded yet piercing, fixed on Amara. "Child of the king," she intoned, "your heart chooses beyond the boundaries of your bloodline. Be warned, love that defies the laws of men may awaken forces unseen. The forest watches. The river remembers. And the ancestors speak only through those who dare to listen." Amara's heart pounded, but she refused to step back. "I do not fear the spirits," she said, her voice steady, "for my heart is true and he is loyal." The seer nodded slowly. "Truth is not enough, child. You will need courage, wisdom, and sacrifice." That night, as the festival waned, Amara and Ade wandered along the river's edge. Fireflies glimmered like stars fallen to earth. The river seemed to murmur, and the shadows of the forest danced against the moonlight. They shared stories, laughter, and silent promises, unaware that unseen eyes followed them from the darkness. Back in the palace, the king watched from his balcony, conflicted. He could no longer deny the bond between his daughter and the guard. Yet fear gnawed at him. The festival's omens and the seer's warning stirred old memories of curses, ancestral grudges, and the delicate balance between power and humility. By dawn, whispers of strange happenings at the festival had spread. Some claimed the river glowed unnaturally, others that ancestral spirits had appeared among the dancers. For the first time, King Oba Kofi felt the weight of mortality pressing upon him, reminding him that no crown could withstand the wrath of the unseen forces. Days turned into weeks, and Amara continued to defy palace expectations by insisting Ade remain by her side. The king, torn between love for his daughter and the rules of the kingdom, decided to test the young guard. One morning he summoned Ade to the throne room. "You wish to serve my daughter," the king said, his voice echoing in the grand hall. "You must prove your worth not just in loyalty but in courage and wisdom." He handed Ade a scroll. It contained instructions to travel to the Forbidden Forest, a place where few dared enter. Strange creatures lurked there, and the elders claimed spirits could either guide or destroy those who walked its paths. Ade was to retrieve a rare herb, said to heal both body and spirit, for the king's ailing advisor. Amara insisted on accompanying him. No harm will come to him alone, she said. Her father hesitated, then relented, giving them 2 days to complete the task. The forest greeted them like a living entity. The air was thick with moss and the scent of wildflowers, yet shadows twisted unnaturally between the trees. Every sound, the snap of a branch, the whisper of leaves, felt amplified, echoing with unseen presences. Ade led the way, spear ready, while Amara followed closely. They encountered trails marked with carvings of eyes and strange symbols, warning intruders. As they ventured deeper, a sudden screech pierced the air. From the darkness emerged a pack of spectral hyenas, their eyes glowing like embers. Ade's grip on his spear tightened, and Amara instinctively grabbed a nearby branch. Together, they moved with calculated bravery, dodging and weaving until the creatures retreated, unwilling to challenge their courage. Finally, they reached a glade bathed in pale moonlight. In the center grew the herb, delicate yet radiant. As Ade reached for it, the ground trembled, and a deep voice rumbled from the shadows. Who dares disturb the sacred heart of the forest? Amara stepped forward, her voice clear and unafraid. We mean no harm. We seek only to honor the king and protect our people. The shadow receded, leaving only silence. Ade took the herb, and together they returned to the palace. Their success impressed the king. For the first time he saw Ade not just as a guard, but as someone with courage, wisdom, and loyalty that surpassed rank or blood. Amara and Ade's bond grew stronger, but palace intrigue thickened. Envious nobles sought to undermine Ade, spreading rumors of treachery. One evening a false letter arrived claiming Ade plotted against the king. Amara, furious, confronted the king. Father, do not believe lies. He would never betray you. He has risked life and limb for you, for this kingdom, for me. The king, torn between suspicion and love for his daughter, summoned Ade. In front of the court, he demanded an explanation. Ade knelt, his voice steady and sincere. I serve the kingdom and the princess faithfully. My life is hers to command, but my loyalty is first to your majesty. No falsehood can sway my heart. The court murmured, and slowly the truth became evident. The nobles had plotted against Ade, jealous of his favor with the princess. King Oba Kofi's anger burned, but this time it was righteous. He declared Ade's innocence and punished those who spread lies. That night, Amara and Ade walked along the river, their hands intertwined. The moon reflected off the water like molten silver. I fear nothing while I am with you, Amara whispered. Ade kissed her forehead, promising a life of devotion. The ancestors, it seemed, approved. Fireflies danced around them, and the river's hum carried a song of protection, as if the spirits themselves were blessing their union. Months later, the palace buzzed with preparations. Amara and Ade were to marry, a union that shocked some, inspired others, and unsettled the king. Yet he could no longer deny the depth of their love. The wedding was held at sunrise by the river where they had first walked together. Elders blessed them, chanting prayers that called upon ancestors, rivers, and forests. Villagers gathered, amazed at the princess's courage to follow her heart. As the ceremony ended, the king addressed the couple. Ade, you have proven loyalty, bravery, and wisdom. You have shown the heart of a true leader. I name you my heir. May the spirits guide your reign. The court erupted in whispers. A guard, once thought unworthy of royalty, was now the future king. Ade knelt, accepting the weight of responsibility, his eyes meeting Amara's, filled with love and resolve. Years passed, and King Oba Kofi eventually passed, leaving Ade to rule the kingdom alongside Queen Amara. Under their reign, Nkora flourished. Villagers prospered, forests and rivers were honored, and ancestral traditions were respected. Yet even in prosperity, shadows lingered. Forest spirits occasionally whispered warnings, reminding the king and queen that vigilance was eternal. But their love, forged in courage and trials, remained unbroken. On quiet nights, when the river hummed and fireflies danced like the stars, the people would speak of the princess and the guard who defied tradition, tamed the shadows, and became the rulers of Ancora. Their story became legend, a tale of love, courage, and the eternal bond between hearts brave enough to follow the path the ancestors themselves had watched over.